I'm here just to tell you my journey of how God has been leading me through my life. I became a part of Indian Creek and served as a volunteer in children's ministry and had been a former teacher, and so that was just a natural thing for me to be involved in that. But then as I continued to be involved in the ministry, God kept leading me and prompting me in different directions, and I eventually became director of children's ministry and enjoyed every aspect of that, working with the kids and the parents. And then once again, God got a hold of me and started to develop these dreams inside of me that were with children, but also beyond the Indian Creek walls. And it began in the story of Countryside Elementary School. And through Tom Bassford, I had the opportunity to meet the principal, Stacy Shipley, at the time. And I was shocked when I heard the story of Countryside, the fact that there were so many needy kids that didn't have opportunities that normal kids in the Olathe area had. And it grabbed hold of me, and God just, from that point on, just wrecked me. I always had the desire in my life, more like a mission statement. That was the desire of my mission, is to help people find their purpose and to be able to find significance. And as I started hearing the stories of these kids and the reality of they didn't have the things that other kids had, and they didn't have confidence in themselves, and they didn't have the opportunity to even afford to have a T-shirt so they could be a part of the school, or they weren't even able to afford a picture taken for them. And so I just prayed about it, and we just decided that as a church we could do something about that. And so God got a hold of other people other than me, but together we started to impact that school through Indian Creek. And there were many things that we got involved with, and it was just a desire just to ask them, how can we help you? And I think for us it was like, okay, let's just see where God's at and what he's involved in, and let's just join him. So it began with just asking a lot of questions of what could we do to help you. And through that experience, we started many, many initiatives and partnerships with Countryside, and were able to build trust with them. And that was going really well for quite a long time. And then once again, God got a hold of me, and it happened through a time when I was mentoring. I was actually a youth friend with a young girl, and I started when she was in 6th grade at Countryside Elementary School. And I began to follow her throughout middle school and then in high school. And one of the things I realized as I was mentoring this one little girl is the fact that because of her life situation, and she lived in a state of poverty, that she didn't have the things that other kids had, and she had no hope. She wasn't able to go to after-school activities because her mom had 2 jobs. And so she wasn't exposed to things that other kids were exposed to. So she would spend most of her time at home sleeping. She didn't do well in school because she didn't feel like there was any reason. She didn't see her life past what it was. And it was at that point that God said, Terry, you can start something different. What would it look like if you and others were able to be a part of not only of meeting the needs of these kids and families at Countryside, but what if you actually pulled together and could transform lives? And it was at that point that I said, okay, God, there's more that we can do. And we could help really become part of these families' lives and see change happen. And so I started to talk with a friend of mine, Chuck Allen from USC. And he was already doing some mentoring in Wyandotte County, and we were good friends, and I was exposed to a lot of things that he was doing. And I thought, what would it look like if we could do something like that here at Indian Creek? And I was in the building one day, and I was just looking around, and I just felt God speak to me, Terry, this building is a community center. It is a place where so many people come together with gifts. Use it. Use this building. And so I thought, well, what would that look like to be able to expose kids to the different things that they wouldn't have an opportunity, like cultural arts, music, dance, singing. And so I started to talk to the director of Trilogy, which they rent space here at Indian Creek, and they're a part of Indian Creek. And I shared my ideas with her, and she said she's always wanted to do something like that, and that she had done a little bit of that in the past. And so she was on board, and she said, just tell me when, and I'm right there with you. And so that was kind of confirmation for me. One of the things I struggle with most is the fact that I like to have my ducks in a row. I like to have control of my life, and God's been teaching me how to let go of that. And He gives me enough information to keep me on track and take the steps that He wants me to take, but He doesn't give me the whole picture. Darn it, I want it. But He's learned for me to trust Him. And so I just felt that I needed to trust Him. This was confirmation. They were willing to go, and I talked with Steve from Harvest Taekwondo, and he said he wanted to be involved in something like that. And so we began to start processing what it would look like to have a life enrichment program here at Countryside, where we would bring kids from Countryside Elementary to Indian Creek and mentor them and expose them to the arts. And so at that time I was still directing children's ministry here, and I just felt God saying, Terry, in order for you to really do this, wow, you need to step out. And that was the most difficult thing for me to do, because I had no job. This was, how was I going to earn a living and make ends meet? And I had to go back and remember all the things that God had done for me in the past and how He had provided for me. That gave me the courage to say, you know what, I'm just going to trust. And so I resigned from my position as children's ministry director and began with the life enrichment program. Didn't know if kids would even come. Didn't know if parents would trust us. Didn't know if we would have any mentors. Didn't know if we would have enough cultural arts classes. But as we continued to plan and dream, and I started sharing the dream with others, God got a hold of other people. And by the end of the time we were ready to launch, we had 18 kids who had signed up to be part of this program from Countryside. And we had 8 or 9 mentors. And we knew it was time. And so we launched in February our first life enrichment program. And it's been a wonderful experience. The one thing that, I said, I didn't really think that we would see a lot of fruit from this, only having it for 3 months, 3.5 months. But it's amazing what God has done in the short period of time and how He's already transformed lives of these kids. And I tell you, there's some horrific stories of these kids. But what we were able to do is just to love on them and give them hope and help them to see past their circumstances and start believing in themselves. It's amazing their attitudes that have changed. And God has taught me to just follow Him, to really allow myself to be an empty vessel and realize that I am nothing without Him. But with Him, I can do all things. And that if I stay close to Him, He will guide me. He's not hiding from me. He will guide my steps. And then He will give me the tools and gifts and everything I need. And He also has really shown me that He will bring other people around me to help fulfill His dream, because it really isn't my dream. And it's exciting to see what a church could do when people come together and surrender themselves and say to God, I want to be used. Whatever it is, I want to use my gifts and my talents to do your will. And how powerful and how much potential a church has when they unify together for a common cause and a common purpose, more than any one person can do themselves. And I know with me, by myself, I can't do all this, but together, I know that God's plan and His dream for Indian Creek can be fulfilled. And so I'm just so grateful to be a part of this. And I know that this dream is bigger than even Indian Creek. I believe that God's dream is to multiply LEP in the city and then beyond. And I don't know what my role is in that. All I know is I'm taking my step forward. I'm going to keep moving forward, and whatever he tells me to do, I'll do it, and trust in him, and know that at the end of the day, I am doing the will of God, and I get to be a part of his redemptive plan. And is it anything greater than that? I'm Terry Geenens, and I'm living sent.